Welcome to the first part in a series of instructional videos designed to help players firstly learn the game of Othello and then move on to develop an understanding of basic concepts and strategies involved in playing a game. In this video we're going to solely concentrate on ensuring that we have a basic understanding of firstly notation. That is how we refer to the board when playing or analysing a game. It allows us to easily communicate ideas and helps us avoid confusion during discussion. Secondly, we'll examine the rules of Othello, and finally we'll move on to look at reading transcripts. These allow us to record a sequence of play during a game and then refer back to them at a later date. It's important that as a player you can follow these transcripts in order to recreate the positions discussed in these videos. Othello uses an 8x8 board similar to that used in chess or drafts. However, the 64 squares that make up the board are block green as opposed to being checkered. When we refer to each of these squares, we need a method of referencing them so that we can discuss the positions easily. This is done using coordinates, similar to that you may have come across in maths class or while playing a game of battleships. So, for example, the numbers 1 to 8 run along the side of the board, and the letters A to H run along the top. This gives each square a unique reference that we can refer to during discussion. So, for example, in this square here, we can see that it is denoted by the letter C and the number 4. Therefore, we would call this square C4. We can use this methodology to refer to any position on the board, and use that in turn to create a transcript, which we will discuss later. Othello is a simple game to learn. It uses 64 playing pieces that are black on one side and white on the other. These are often referred to as stones. The game begins with a black disc at D5 and another at E4. White has discs at D4 and E5. It is important to set up the board in this fashion to start with. Players then choose a colour and take alternate turns to play a piece with their colour face up onto the board, with the black player always moving first. So here, it is black's turn. Black must place a piece black face up next to a white piece, so that the white piece is sandwiched or trapped in between a black piece being played and the piece already in play. White is then flipped to black. A sandwich can be formed horizontally, diagonally, or vertically. In these examples we've shown just one piece being flipped at a time. However, it's possible to flip multiple pieces by trapping them in a longer line in a single turn. So, for example, in this position, if white plays G5, then it will flip pieces at D5, E5 and F5. It will also flip a piece at F4, as it is possible to trap pieces along multiple lines in a single turn. It is important to remember that a player cannot freely choose which pieces they flip. If a piece is trapped as a result of a piece being played, then it must be flipped. Similarly, a player must always flip an opponent's piece. It is not possible to simply play a piece onto the board without flipping any pieces. If there are no options available for a player, then that player passes, and their opponent will continue to play their own pieces onto the board until an option becomes available. So consider the position here. It's black's turn to play. Black decides to play A7, flipping the 5 white discs that are in the A column. Both players consider this position and agree that there are no possible moves available for white. Pause this video and study this position for yourself to ensure that you're able to see this. White then passes, allowing black to play a second move to B6, flipping white pieces at C5 and D4. This move has now created a single possible move for white, to C6, which it must play. Players continue to play pieces onto the board until the board is completely filled or neither player has any legal moves. So here's an example of a game completed with the board completely filled, and here's another example of a game completed with 2 squares empty at the end that neither player has access to. Again, take time to pause this video and ensure that you can see that no pieces can be sandwiched by either player. The winner is the player with the most pieces of his or her colour showing face up at the end of the game. So in this position, white has 56 discs and black has 6 discs. Empty squares are usually counted toward the winning player's score, thus making the score in this game 58-6 in favour of white. Now that we have the rules set out and the ability to easily refer to a position on the board using coordinates, let's finally look at how we go about recording a game both during and after play. During a live game, players record their moves using a transcript sheet. This is the simplest method of recording games during play, but is slightly harder to follow afterwards. As players play their moves, they will record the move number into a grid representing the board, writing the move number into the square that the piece was played. This forms a grid whereby the game's 60 moves are shown. So to follow this transcript, black's move 1 is here, white's move 2 is here, and black's move 3 is here, and so on. If you reach a position in which a player has to pass, simply play the next numbered move as the other colour. It is also common to see the transcript written out using the coordinates instead, as shown here. However, this is harder for players to do during gameplay, as the board typically doesn't show grid references on it. This concludes our introduction. In the next video, we will consider some of Othello's specific terminology. We will also consider why Othello is such an interesting game to play, and why it coins the phrase, "a minute to learn, a lifetime to master." As a final exercise, what follows is the transcripts from a few of the games taken from the 2008 World Othello Championships. Take time to follow these games and ensure that you can reach the final positions provided.